Right, sorry, I'm just gonna repeat what I said. This is the Authors Roundtable. It was formerly the Storytelling Roundtable, and I'm changing the name of it pretty soon. So you guys are getting the first, you guys are the first to get to know about that. So welcome to everyone who's here. Again, I'm here with Melanie Hirschhorn, if you're just joining us. She is an expert in marketing your book. And I'm dividing today's gathering sort of into 3 acts, where in the first one, I'm going to talk to you about how do you find your writer's voice? How do you stand out? How do you find your personality in your writing? And then Melanie is going to talk to us about how do we take that content from our book and use it in a way that helps us grow our business and helps us get the word out about what it is that we're doing. And so what I'd love to invite you guys to do is just use the chat to get to know each other, make this more interactive and so on. And just tell us, you know, if you're thinking about writing a book, what are you thinking about writing about? Or if you have a book already, please tell us what the topic is, because I know some of you have written ebooks before, and some of you have done a fair amount of writing already. So it'd be a great way to get to know more about everyone who's here. So I'm also curious to know what to you are the most important elements of good writing, in your opinion, because we can all have different opinions about it. And if all of us add in what we think about regarding that, then we can learn from each other. So what I think is the least important may actually shock you. Okay, someone said it's only letting me send a direct message to you. Let me see how to do that. Does anyone know how I change that? Let's see.
Yeah, in the Zoom settings, I think you can, let me see.
That's weird.
Can I just use the bathroom in 5 minutes and I'll be back?
Of course you may.
Okay, then don't start. Okay, I'm coming.
All right. Oh my golly. I thought it would make it easy to do that. I don't know. Sorry, guys. I guess just share it with me directly, and then I will share it out with everyone. So sorry, that's the case. I'll have to figure that out. I thought it would sort of be up here where I could see it. All right. And please be sure to mute yourself if you can, if you're not muted already. That would be great. All right. So, like I said, the least important idea for what makes good writing might actually shock you, and I'll go over that in a minute. But what I want to talk about first is, what is your voice? And if you guys have ideas around how you define a writer's voice, please feel free to let me know, and I will share them out. I'll go and look at the chat and then share them out and give you credit for your ideas. So basically, with voice, your personality comes through on the page. If you've known me for a while, you know I'm a fan of personable content, personable writing, and thinking through how is it that we get what we have to say out there in a way that is uniquely us. So if you've read, you know, when you read books or you read articles, sometimes you can tell who the writer is just by their word choice, the way they construct sentences, and so on. And that is part of what it is that makes our writer's voice. So it happens through diction, which is our word choice, how you see and describe the world, and the length of your sentences, how you choose to use punctuation. So there are punctuation rules, but sometimes we can break those when we do them consistently. It kind of helps people know who we are. And then sometimes, here's a really weird one. If there's a good reason to spell a word differently than other people do because it has something to do with your business, sometimes that makes sense as well. Your turns of phrase are another one. All of us have turns of phrase. Sometimes when I greet people in a business setting, I'll say holy cocktails because it's just something that popped out once during one of my content writing challenges, and I stuck with it. And so sometimes things pop out, turns of phrase, and I keep them and I use them because I like them. So just some word choice. I'm going to give you guys some examples on word choice. I walked through the crowd sounds a lot different than I swam through the crowd. Now, this is a very, you know, that alone is not going to define your voice in writing. So that's not the point, but it's just to show you that a simple word change in a sentence can create a whole different feeling. I swam through the crowd. We know that the person is not really swimming, but we might imagine them in New York with lots of crowds on the street and they're trying to get through. And sometimes it can feel like swimming when you're walking through a large crowd. It can also be sentence structure or use of fragments. So if we look at Joan Didion's The Year of Magical Thinking, which is a memoir that she wrote after the loss of her husband, she shares this fragment, the question of self-pity. That is a Joan Didion fragment. It's not even a sentence with a verb that does anything, right? There's no person in that sentence that's doing anything. There's no verb that's telling us what's being done. The reason that fragment works is because she's talking to us or writing to us about the disjointed, shocking, and upsetting feeling of losing her husband. And so that fragment is also sharing in its disjointedness what it is that she's feeling as a writer. So even though we might not think about it, oh, here's a fragment, it's disjointed. We might not always think about these kinds of things, but it is conveying that nonetheless. So, and she conveys that feeling throughout the book with short sentences like that, that then in the larger context of the book make a lot of sense and create a feeling and create her voice. So when we read Joan Didion, we can usually identify Joan Didion. So other examples of different kinds of voices that we can use, because you might be wondering, well, how do I develop my voice? I'm going to give you some examples using this idea of driving a car. So if it was simple and clear, we're just aiming for clear communication, I'm driving a car. Really simple, right? You know exactly what I'm saying. There's no question about it. Then if we kind of got weird, creative, we're getting a little bit less clear with this next one. With this example, I'm hopping onto my motorized horse now, cowpoke. Like maybe in a fiction story, in a novel, that's something that someone says. But we don't really know what a motorized horse is or if that means car. So there's a little bit of confusion. So the writer, if they use a sentence like that, would need to provide some context around that sentence so that it would even make sense. There's also the scientific voice. Now, a lot of my clients who write books are trying to avoid that academic scientific voice, yet it's good to know about, because if you have a science background, academic or legal background, it's really good to think about how the way you learn to write might be coming into your voice. You may want to keep elements, you may not want to keep other elements. So a scientific voice might sound like, the next step of the plan is to enter into the vehicle, which has a V6 engine, which was invented by ... So you can see where it's really focusing on facts. There's no feeling. It's not, the clearest necessarily. There's also sort of a mean, sarcastic voice. I included this one just to sort of show a bit of, the difference between different voices. But it might be, why don't I just get into the car and drive away? It might be a question. Then there's authoritative. We all must get into the car now. So sometimes authoritative can work really well because maybe you're trying to teach people something. Sometimes it works really well to have the authoritative voice if you're trying to calm people down, because sometimes in times of panic and upset, people just need to know what to do. So if you can give people some calm, rational things to do in an authoritative voice, it can make people feel better and make them feel like they can have a plan of action. So there's always a choice for when you will use sort of these different flavors and how each of them might contribute to your overall voice that you're conveying in your writing. I have two more to share with you. One is inspirational influencer. And notice this is the wordiest one. I wanted to include one that was a little bit wordy, a little bit flowery, just so you could see. Here it is. When we all drive cars through the Western desert, we can ponder how grateful we are for friends and family. There's nothing like driving at sunset, drinking a green smoothie to get the mind thinking about the big things in life. Now, there's a lot of detail in there. There's the sunset, there's the green smoothie. It's kind of giving you the vibe of the person and the things that they do. So those details can be really good for sharing information. And you can see how it's very different from the plain one, which is I'm driving a car. And then the last one, overly poetic or poetic would be, I must get into my car. I ask you not to harden your heart. Please join me on this journey. Something like that. So you can have sort of flowery, poetic language. Usually that's to be avoided, but I wanted to mention it because sometimes we can veer in that direction where we feel like we have to write in this official way, just because of how we've been taught in the past. Now, what is the least important thing? Let me see if there's anyone in the waiting room, first of all. And what you guys have in the chat. Okay, great. Welcome, Todd. Good to see you. Mabina, welcome. Good to see you guys. All right. So if you have any questions or anything you want to add, just feel free to put it in the chat there. And I'm sorry, not everyone can see it. I'll have to figure out that setting later on. So what's the least important, at least at first? So this becomes important later, but it's not important at first. It's actually the punctuation and the grammar. So when you're trying to lay ideas down, I look at it as trying to put paint on a canvas when you're a painter and just starting out with a new painting. We're going to get a little messy. We might spill some paint. We might have the paintbrush hit a part of the canvas that we didn't expect to. And so that's kind of equivalent to having messy grammar and punctuation. So does it matter later on? Definitely yes. I'm not saying it never matters. It's just at first, if we worry too much about, where the punctuation goes, making sure our spelling's perfect, it can really slow us down. I know this from experience and working with lots of writers. Sometimes they're like, oh, if I could just stop, editing my sentences, I could actually get somewhere. So there's a time for creation, and then there's a time to go back and edit. And those require different parts of our brain. There's the creative brain, which wants to get the ideas down. Then there's that more analytical editorial brain where we can go back and fix things. So they're both important, yet at different times. And do let me know if you have any questions at all about this. So I'm very excited to have Melanie here with us. And she's going to talk to us about the content marketing strategy that we would use with our book. And one of the things that I've noticed working with people on their books is that they have so much good content, and some of it might not have been created before they wrote the book. Now, people sometimes go about it different ways. Sometimes they might write a blog, they get clear on their ideas, then they decide they want to create a book. They might have a speech, some talks they've given and so on, and they want to turn that into a book. So sometimes people do have content beforehand. Sometimes people are starting with a completely new idea and they don't have content beforehand. No matter which path someone is on, Melanie's processes can really help with being able to repurpose that content and being able to get the most out of your ideas and to help yourself and others by sharing your ideas more widely. So Melanie, tell us more about what is a content strategy and why you think it's so important. And thank you for being here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Okay, and if you guys have questions, feel free to unmute since I can't see them. It's totally just loosey-goosey today. So what is a content marketing strategy? It's basically a plan for everything that you put out online as an author. And the reason that you need one is that, think about it like this. If you don't have a brick and mortar store that people can go into and they can pick something up and they can look at it and they can ask you questions, they don't really have any other way of finding out what you're all about, what your book is about, what your brand is about, without seeing all the things that you put out online. So this is really your number 1 to number 20 touch point of potential clients, readers, customers. That is why you need a content marketing strategy. What it is, it's what you put on social media, it's your lead magnet, it is your emails that go out, it's what you say when you're doing a speech, what you say when you're a guest on somebody's podcast or on your own podcast. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I love that. And when you talk about, social media, one of the questions I get a lot from people is, well, where should I be? Should I be on LinkedIn? And then they're like, oh, but I hear TikTok is really hot. And then what about Instagram? Do I have to do reels? And then people start to get really stressed out. And
yeah,
so,
they literally, it's like they unravel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so one thing that can make it simple is thinking about your audience, just thinking about, where does your audience spend time? Are they on TikTok? Are they on LinkedIn? And that can help you narrow down what it is that you need to spend time on.
Absolutely.
Excuse me. I have always found it difficult to narrow down who my target audience is. Could you help me with that, please?
I sure can. Tell me tell me what your book's about. Tell me who you serve. Sure. Tell me everything.
I have to write content on negotiation for salaries.
Okay. For whom?
Oh, it's my boss, and he's a lawyer. So he does company business contracts negotiations. So
Okay.
he understands what both the party wants. So he negotiates contracts. So that's business division, assets division, all those business sides. So I have to on LinkedIn decide that now in the pandemic that we are having the resignation and all that stuff,
Yeah.
how can you best portray your skills and negotiate a higher salary, because you don't have to start at zero if you're switching industries. That's a big thing. So we're trying to positively move forward with saying salary negotiations. You can do it confidently, prepare well, do the market research, don't settle for less. Those kind of things is my target. So
So you
who
know
am
who,
I?
so you know who
Sorry?
it is. It's people on LinkedIn who are working in corporate and who are looking to potentially get a new job and increase their salary.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's a nice way to put it. I didn't know that.
That's exactly what you just told me.
I just described my boss's job description. Okay.
Well, wonderful. So that's who you want to reach out to. That's who you want to be talking to, and you want to think about what their challenges are. And just, I mean, what are some of their challenges? I think you just described them to me. Like they want to make more money, but they don't know how. Or
Exactly. I mean, they don't know how to navigate the interview process in putting their best selves forward. They mostly 43% women, according to a study in USAA, they are saying that they don't even initiate the negotiation process. We're like, they expect you to, and I mean, the worst they can do is say no, right? At least don't leave money on the table. Do yourself a favor and negotiate.
there you go. That is a fantastic post.
I love it. I love that as a headline. Do yourself a favor and negotiate. And then also the idea of increase your salary. So if someone's switching jobs and they want to earn more, increase your salary by 40,000, by 10,000, whatever it is that's common.
40% or more.
Yeah, there you go. I think that's great. You're clear on your messaging. So
very clear. And I love what you said, stop leaving money on the table.
Yeah, you should, if you like me, you will love my employer. I like that nice sound to it. My employer is the lawyer. So
that's great. Thank you for that question. So so Melanie, I wanted to ask you, can you tell us more about how much time people have to devote to their content marketing? Because one of the things I hear is, I don't have time. It's going to take me all day. It took me 2 hours to write a blog post, all these kinds of things. I know this is something a lot of people struggle with.
Absolutely. So if you are blogging, which is a great thing to do, because it really helps with SEO, which is search engine optimization, basically allowing Google to find you in a search. That's what that is. So if you are blogging, then it's a great idea to take that blog and repurpose it into your social media. What do I mean by that? Break it up into parts. So I have a client and she has written a memoir / sort of self-help book. And every week she writes these fantastic scathing blogs about, well, basically the topic is about child molestation, sexual abuse, and what's going on in the world. And she'll take something that happened in the news, because there is literally something that happens on a weekly, if not daily basis, and give her spin on it. And then what we do is we look through the blog and we pull out 5 days worth of posts, because the way you write a blog, it just lends itself naturally to that. So to answer the question of how much time, I guess I would give yourself at least 2 hours a week to create your blog and then repurpose that into social media posts. And you can also repurpose that into an email to send to your subscribers. And if you don't blog, that's okay. We're in a no judgment zone. And you can take your social media posts and put those into a blog, or take your social media posts and turn those into an email that you send out. So it kind of all works together. A lot of people say, well, I don't want to repeat myself. And that's the opposite of what you should be doing. You need to repeat yourself. When you start to sound like a broken record and feel like a broken record, that's when your messaging starts working. That's when people start coming up to you and going, oh, you do this. And it's amazing. I can tell you, I speak from experience where that happens, because people, maybe about 6 months ago, people were like, you're just doing amazing. You're all over the internet. I'm like, thanks. And then, you know, an old boyfriend from 6th grade, he scheduled a meeting for me to meet with his mother because she wrote a book. And, you know, it's like when people start coming out of the woodwork and they reach out to you because they know that that's what you do, that's when your broken record messaging is working.
Definitely. I have a couple things I want to share because I love this topic. I hope you don't mind. But I was just setting up my Publer. It's a content scheduling tool. There's lots of these out there. So if you're new to the content marketing world, there's SmarterQueue, there's Publer. There's just so many of them out there. So I set up my content for the next few weeks. And what happened to me as I was doing this is exactly what Melanie said. I was like, I'm so tired of hearing myself talk about this topic. But to other people, they're just not going to see everything I post. And so what I did is I post things throughout the day, or I set up the software to do it. I post throughout the day. I comment on other people's posts because I'm truly, you know, looking to create community and get to know people and so on and develop relationships. And it really does work when you're focused. And also when I first spoke to Melanie many months ago, when we first met by phone or by Zoom, she's so dialed in on her messaging. She's like book marketing strategy. Like she's not trying to do like, she's not trying to sell cars. She's not trying to like sell her paintings. She's not trying to do 4 things. She's doing this one thing. And so it's really a great example of becoming very specific about what you do and really dialing in your messaging. And what you're talking to, I think it was Mina about, is also just on the topic of dialing in your messaging and becoming really, really clear on what it is that you're doing. So,
and if I can add to that, because
yeah.
sometimes it's scary. It was scary because I used to help everybody. I was like, oh, you're an entrepreneur. You sell things. I can help with your marketing. And then finally I was like, you know, I really just want to be able to help authors. And it was a little bit scary to say, you know, put my stake in the ground and say, okay, if you're not an author, I'm not going to work with you. Because, you know, there's that scarcity mindset. You think, well, look at all those potential clients going by. Well, it's not how it is. There is definitely enough to go around. So when you can really, as I said, put that stake in the ground and say, okay, I only help people who are looking to increase their salaries in a corporate environment, then those are the people that are going to come to you. And instead of having confusing messaging that really doesn't attract anybody, then you really start to attract the right person to you.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
That's so true.
Yeah, that is so true. I love that you mentioned repurposing, and I wanted to share with everyone a couple of ideas. So let's just use, we're here, right? This is going on sort of like, this will be listed privately on YouTube, and I'll share it with people who've registered who weren't able to make it today. And so it'll be content that I can use again. I can also get it transcribed and turn it into a blog post and then insert the video into it. Every week I have an SOS show for it stands for Strategy Over Spaghetti. I do it on LinkedIn and a couple other places, but that's not important. So let's just say I do it just on LinkedIn. I can take that, I can get it onto YouTube. I can stream directly to YouTube and just have it there right away. I can turn it into a blog post. And then like Melanie said, I can email it out to my list. There's just so many different ways. So that is another, that's a way for content not to take a long time. Have like your main core content piece that you do. And this is really great for people who have podcasts. I don't have a podcast or want one at the moment, but for people who do, I just worked with someone on turning his sales podcast into a book of excellent advice from all the experts in sales that he's interviewed. And we divided it into topics, and people can just open up the book and kind of do little dips into it to get inspiration, ideas, how-to info from people who are in the field. So there's just so many different ways to be able to repurpose content. And I just wanted to share a couple of the ones that I've seen in action so that you guys could write them down, think about applying them in your business if it makes sense, and explore some other ideas as well.
That's such a great idea. And, there's that fear of, well, somebody already saw it. No, all that means is that it's going to get remembered better because, we're scrolling, we're not paying attention, we're watching TV, we're on the toilet, so you want to get your message out, the same one over and over again. So I love that Those are great. And I love that he repurposed a book, repurposed his podcast into a book. That's brilliant. I love that you did that.
I know. I'm going to have him as a guest too. His book comes out in July of 2022. I'm dating the video for the future, but I'm excited about it and think it's such a great idea that he did that. So tell us, since we're on this topic, tell us more about how can people who have books create content from it?
Woo-hoo-hoo, I love this topic. Okay. So literally start at the beginning. What are some stories that you've inserted in your book in the beginning of the book that would be great to put out there in the world? I want to say that even if it's in the book and even if you post it on social media, you're never revealing too much. It's okay to put it out there and then it also be in the book. Like, you're not giving away all your secrets. It's okay. So stories that you've put in there, client wins and transformations. Sometimes people put in quotes at the beginning of a chapter. You know, they quote Maya Angelou, or they quote, I don't know, Zig Ziglar, and take those quotes, put it out there, and then talk about what it means to you. Even the chapter titles make a good writing prompt for your content. I mean, pretty much your book is a gold mine. Anything in there. Maybe there's a diagram and you want to talk about why that diagram is important, what it means. Literally, like, sometimes people put in pictures of family members for whatever reason. So post that picture and talk about that family member and what it means to you. As you know, Deborah is all about story, and story is what is most important. So anytime that you can take what's in your book and write a story about it online or in your email.
Yeah. And the person I was talking about who wrote the sales book, he said, well, he said, you can mention the book now, but it's not officially launching until July. And so, you know, I'm going to use the image to create a little story about how we created the book. And then what that will end up doing is, you know, people will be able to see themselves. Like, they might not want to create the exact same book. It might not be on the topic of sales. They might not have a podcast. The point is, it doesn't matter, but people will be able to see there's a process. And something else you can do, I think Melanie touched on this, but it's an idea I love, is just taking your process that you use with clients and then writing about different elements of it. So if you have like a 3-step process, a 6-step process, then you can write about each one of them. I did that for LinkedIn, and I created a 6-step, create your book series that I shared on social media as posts. And then later I put it into an article. I made this quite some time ago, so I forget some of the details. But, you know, again, it's repurposing what you have and what your ideas are. And so a lot of people will say, but I don't have a process. Well, think through, like, what's the first step with your clients? What's the second? What's the third? What's the fourth? Because you might not have a process that you have a name for. You might not have something called like the ABC 1, 2, 3 process, but you might still have certain benchmarks, milestones, things you do for clients that you can make a list of, that you can write about, even if your process changes based on the client and so on. So those are just some other things for you to think.
If I can even expand on that, because that is beautiful that you did that. That's fantastic, because what happens is then people go, oh, I love what you do. I can't do this myself. I need to hire you. And ultimately, the reason that we're creating all this content online is not because we have nothing else to do. It's because we want people to know about us. And what happens when they know about us? That's when we create that know, like, and trust factor that you hear marketers talk about all the time. And once people know you, they like you, they trust you, when they're ready to buy what it is that you offer, they take out their credit card because they go, oh, I remember somebody that does that. I've been following him for years. I want to hire him. That's the beauty of your content marketing. That's what it does for you.
Yep. And I think that you raised something about the 4 years that I think is important, is that there's a certain element of people who are ready right now, like they're looking right now to make a decision, but there's some people who aren't going to be ready for a while. So if it looks like it's not working when you first do it, it can take a while before the message begins to filter through and people begin to know it. Even like I found that, I've been doing this, book coaching for a really long time. And now I get referrals from people who remembered me from years ago. If I changed my business and I was doing something else, then that would be more difficult for me. So if you're just starting or you just change your business, just know that you do have to give it time. It's definitely not an overnight success type of thing. However, you might still get some people who are sort of ready to make a decision and they're just looking for that person right now. And so then they would be ready. So the point is, we don't know where people are in their stage of the journey and working with any one of us on something. So it's always good to just be putting our message and content out there to let them see what we can do.
I love that because you're right. Marketing is absolutely the long game. You know, we see these overnight successes, but there's no such thing.
Yeah.
Pam had a question.
Oh, yeah.
So please unmute, Pam.
I think it was not so much a question as just something that I've been doing lately. I've been really focusing on doing videos and using content from my book, which is what you were talking about. And my books, you know, I don't hardly promote them because they don't look good, but there's lots of good content in them. And so recently, the thing I've been doing is I've been reading it just out loud to myself. I haven't even been recording it. But, you know, this is something that Deborah talks about, you know, is when you read your content, you hear whether it flows. And so, you know, not only is it giving me ideas about how to edit my books, but tons and tons and tons and tons of ideas for content. But I had not thought about the chapter titles. I mean, that's a little one that I had not thought about. I mean, but basically you're saying you can use like any element.
Yeah, it's all from here. And this is yours. And you get to repurpose what's in there.
Yeah, it's fun. And it does make life easier. But the challenge I do have is, I'm getting better with Louise's help with the Trello board, but I still have a hard time keeping up with what have I already done a Facebook Live about? I'm getting better at creating systems for that.
Yeah, but you can repeat yourself.
Yeah.
It's okay. In fact, as we talked about that whole broken record, it's actually a good idea to repeat yourself.
Yeah.
I have said a lot of the same things that I have said to you today hundreds of times.
Yeah.
Hundreds of times. In fact, my book is coming out and most of the things that I said today are in there and in the videos that I do. And I just keep repeating myself. But
yes.
That's the point. This is your brainchild. So you just have to keep talking about it. Now it says mindful decluttering, right?
Yes.
So you probably use those words a whole heck of a lot. And that's okay, because then people are going to go, oh, my friend Pam, she does mindful decluttering.
Yeah.
And that's what this is. This is
anyway, thanks for the tips.
Yeah, and I've had the pleasure of reading one of her books and it is excellent. So she knows her stuff.
Awesome.
Also, so another thing I want to ask you about is, you know, people do ask a lot about, should I focus more on social media? Should I focus more on email marketing when it comes to content? So I'd love to know, what are your thoughts and experiences with that, Melanie?
Okay, so there are a lot of experts who say it has to be social media. And then there are experts who say you never have to go on social media. So I'm sort of in the middle. I believe that your email list is really where it's at, because there was that day in October 2021 when Instagram, Facebook, and WhatsApp went away and nobody could access them. And everyone went, I don't know what to do, except for those of us with email lists. And we were like, see, this is what we're talking about. So I think that having a balance of both is great, because social media, people expect you to be there. Right? They expect you to be there. Let's say you hire a publicist and they get you on the Today Show. Well, the Today Show is an incredible opportunity with lots and lots of eyes. But what's happening when those people are watching the Today Show? They're going back to Instagram and they're looking at you on Instagram. And if all you have there is a picture of your dinner, they're not going to buy your book because they're going to be like, this person isn't legit. So that's why it's important to have an online presence with social media. However, having an email list, you really own that. And if somebody unsubscribes, well, bye. They weren't your ideal reader anyway. but you have that listed as yours, and people can't take that away from you. So I believe you need to have both, but never at the expense of the other. And if it's too much trouble, then just at least post a couple times a week and send out 1 email a week. And then you are so good.
Yeah, that is great. And something I've been experimenting with is, sending, usually on Fridays when I can, sending an email to most of my list, sometimes all of my list. And then also starting that email, kind of like letting it percolate the weekend before, jotting down some ideas I might write about, thinking through what is it I really want to communicate. So that way it doesn't have to be a stressful thing. And usually by Thursday, I'm refining it, editing it, and then it's ready to go out by Friday. But you know what? There was 1 week recently where like things were like super hectic and crazy, and I didn't do it. And I was just like, well, I'm not perfect, so that's okay. So just getting back on the horse. Sometimes I know people are like, I missed my day, and then they just like don't do it for months. I'm like, okay, let's not,
Right.
let's
And
not
that's
be too
the
hard on
problem.
ourselves.
Right. And that's the risk you run. So just remember, talking about that horse, get back up on it. And don't beat yourself up if you stopped for a while, just start again. And a question I get a lot is, well, do I have to let them know that I was this and that and the other? And I'm like, no, just say, hey, I'm back. Keep going.
Yeah,
Move
exactly.
forward.
And this is a great segue into the resource sharing that I want to do. So it's kind of like our third act. What I'd love to do is just share a book with you. This is called Gift of the Sea. And every month I share a resource with something that can help you with your writing. It's by Anne Morrow Lindbergh, and I can send out the title in the email along with the replay afterward. But what I really like about what she says is in the introduction, hang on, let me just find it here. She collected her ideas around the sea and nature and put them together. And when she first started writing, she didn't know what it was that she was going to create. And the person or her daughter, I guess, wrote that she read it at all seasons of the year throughout her life. And that when her mother was writing the book, she stayed in a little cottage on Florida's Gulf Coast. And I think what's really important is what the person says, that I began these pages for myself. This is what the author writes about her own experience. So when you first begin writing anything, begin writing it for yourself. I mean, we all know you're going to have an audience if you're doing business communication for your business. And if you're doing content marketing, it's not going to end up being for yourself, right? But if you have ideas you're exploring, it's really wise to just write it down and have it be for yourself, just so you can explore the ideas in private before the naysayers come in and tell you like, no one wants to read that. I mean, that just breaks my heart when I hear people like, well, I really want to write this book, and they have all this experience and like they're just like have done amazing things. And then like someone close to them is like, but who would want to read that? So then their dream goes away and they never do it. And I just think that that's so sad. So that's why I recommend people just write a paragraph or two about what it is you would like to do if you're, with your book. And then she said, I think best with a pencil in my hand. So I started naturally to write. So she uses a pencil. Some people want to use, their computers. It doesn't really matter. But the point is, if you is following her directions just to write, just write something and just start out with that. And then you can ask yourself questions about it later. Like, do I see anything here that came out that's interesting? I'll tell you a quick story of my trip to Kentucky, where I got a really cool idea of something to write about. I stopped off and I visited the Mary Todd Lincoln House in Lexington, Kentucky. I learned something there that was very interesting. I'm not going to share what, because I'm still working on the piece I'm writing about. Then something was going on in the news at that time that tied into what I learned. And then there was like this third element. So now I have like these 3 ideas that can be woven together into a piece of writing that will be unlike anything anyone else is writing about. They might write about the topic. They would know who these people are that I plan to write about, but they would not have talked about it in this particular way. And so when you are writing consistently, it allows you to explore those different kinds of ideas, and you can surprise yourself. You might be writing about your area of expertise. You might not be, or you might write about something in a way that really helps you stand out in life and in your business. So I just wanted to share that with you. It's a really good book. It was given to me by a celebrity ghostwriter friend. when I went out and, you know, and met her on the West Coast. So just want to share that really good book recommended by a well-known ghostwriter to me. So thank you guys so much for coming here. I really appreciate your time. Melanie, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom on content marketing and book marketing with us.
Thank you. And I just sent you a link that if you might be able to send it to the people here, that I have a free ultimate book marketing checklist. If anybody would like to go ahead and download that.
That is awesome. That is
So
awesome. I will definitely send that out to folks.
Copy and paste to whomever.
Yeah. If you want to send me that, oh yeah, here it is. I've got it. All right. Oh, I'll just download the chat. If anyone wants it, let's see, I'll download the chat here. I just found where people can chat with everyone. Isn't that funny? I found it at the end. Anyway, such is life. So maybe try again and see if you can share it with everyone. So we're going to be doing the next one on the third Wednesday. It's always going to be third Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Eastern. So I will send out a notice. You can get signed up for the next one if you'd like to come. And I'll share out what the topic will be or the conversation will be about. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the future. All right. Thanks again, Melanie. Take good care, everyone.
Sorry, that link doesn't seem to work. I don't know if there's some.
We'll get it sorted out and we'll send it later.
Okay.
All right.
Super,
Take care,
thank you.
everyone. Bye.
Glad I made it.